Okay, so some fair warning. I did scale back what was in this video just a little bit, pretty much right before I completed it. The fact of the matter is there is a whole lot of supposition in here, some of which I cut out, mostly because I realized that this video was getting kind of long. I am actually getting ready for my first Gravity Falls complete series rewatch, which means that it's relatively likely that I'll find something while rewatching the show that fits with this theory. That means that this can act as an introduction to these ideas, and then I can come back later and make a more complex theory about it then. Not to say that this isn't complex at all, I just want to let you guys know in case you could tell that bits and pieces had been removed. All that said, let's talk about something that the Gravity Falls fandom, I understand, has been discussing for a very long time, since before I ever got into the show. And that is the rather conspicuous similarities between Stan Pines and Bill Cipher. They aren't super numerous, but they're definitely noticeable. Let's go ahead and start with their appearance, the most superficial thing. Obviously, Bill Cipher, being a very different being than Stan, is going to have a very different appearance, and yet there are some similarities. Both of these characters like to dress to impress, so to speak. Stan always dressing in a suit and a hat, and Bill always dressing in a hat and tie. They have some very similar lines over the course of the show. Both mention the buying and selling of gold. They both speak the exact same line, eeny, meeny, miny, you, to Dipper at one point in the series. They both reference the idea that growing up is more of a psychological thing than a physical thing. Call Ford by the same nickname, Sixer, once each at different points in the series. Just in general, their personalities are very similar. They're both slick, fast-talking salesman types, like that classic 1970s greasy car salesman archetype that you see occasionally in television and movies. They're both showmen, able to enthrall people with their words and behavior. There are even some similar design and story elements which link them together. Bill, for example, takes Stan's place in the modified Weirdmageddon opening sequence. And from a narrative standpoint, despite the fact that it didn't really make sense for them to do this, Dipper and Ford never tell Stan about Bill's plans. In fact, they never really tell him about Bill at all. This ensures that the characters never really interact with each other until the very end of the series. It's an odd choice, since it was very clearly intentional to make the characters so similar. Alex Hirsch even went so far as to voice both characters himself to make sure they were portrayed correctly. These similarities are intentional, regardless of what the reason for them is. That's what this video is about today, trying to pin down what the reasoning might have been. We have a few possibilities to go over. There are, of course, the very simple answers that the show was trying to blur the lines between a good character and an evil character, to show that a good person can have overlapping qualities with an evil person, adding depth to the story. There's also the fact that Bill is a shapeshifter. He is an immensely powerful shape-shifting being who is attempting to spread his influence across dimensions. It's possible that this isn't the form that he takes everywhere that he goes. But when he first reached out to Ford, knowing that Ford was the person who could get him to our reality, he assumed a persona that would remind Ford of his brother, hoping to inspire trust in Ford at the same time. Or it is possible that the connection between Bill and Stan was meant to allude to the fact that Bill would become trapped in Stan's mind at the end of the show, and that Stan would be the one who effectively defeated him. Those are all of the obvious answers, and the last of those is probably the most likely out of all of the ideas that I'm going to propose in this video today. But now, more than ever, with more Gravity Falls content coming soon in the form of graphic novels, we know that the story isn't over, that there were probably plans to continue the story past the end of Season 2 originally. I have a theory that it was originally planned for it to be revealed in Season 3 that Bill Cipher is still alive and well inside Stan's mind. After all, his powers are weakened, his powers are taken away from him by the memory gun. We know for a fact that the memory gun doesn't erase the memories, it just stores them away somewhere, and even then, it's still possible for the person who had their memories erased to begin remembering them again with enough stimuli. And we do see by the end of the series, Stan has been recovering his memories. This means that theoretically Bill should just be dormant inside Stan's mind. Assuming that he wasn't already in control of Stan at the very end of the series when Stan sends the kids off on the bus home. Based on the rules established in this series, if Stan can get his memories back, then Bill Cipher should be able to restore himself. If those memories weren't gone, then Bill isn't gone either. I've been digging through this show's lore trying to look for some rule that was established somewhere that would contradict this and confirm that Bill is dead for good, and I just can't. So of course, if I'm missing something, if you have some reason why you're sure that he's actually dead for good, let me know in the comment section down below. No, the video's not over yet, I just really want to know, because honestly this one seems a little too obvious and I really feel like I probably missed something somewhere. This means that in the upcoming Gravity Falls comics, we could very well see a story arc where it is learned that Bill is in control of Stan, or that his personality has somehow merged with Stan's. Of the two more outlandish theories that I'm going to be touching on today, this is the most likely of the two. But I do have one more possibility that I want to go over with you guys very briefly, and that is the possibility that Bill Cipher is Stan Pines. Now, I know this is a theory that's been talked about within the fandom for a long time, and a lot of people don't like it much because it undermines Stan's character, which is why I'm not proposing that they are literally the same person, but that they are, instead, different versions of the same person from parallel universes. No, wait, don't click off the video. I promise I have actual logical reasons to think this, actual evidence backing this up. The fact that Bill Cipher comes from another dimension establishes that this show does have a multiverse. That in the context of Gravity Falls, multiverse theory is true. Now, this is going to sound crazy, but I want you to stick with me. And yes, I do know that I'm contradicting something that I said in a previous video. You don't have to tell me in the comments, but let's draw a comparison here between this series and Rick and Morty. Now, if you want to see this theory explored in depth, I'd recommend going and checking out MatPat's theory on the Film Theorists channel that goes into much greater depth in regard to this theory than I have time to go into today. But effectively, there is a theory going around that I think is actually pretty likely to be true in one way, shape, or form, that Gravity Falls and Rick and Morty exist in the same multiverse. This theory is built upon a bunch of Easter eggs found within Rick and Morty, as well as, if I'm not mistaken, some Easter eggs found in some of the supplementary material for Gravity Falls that came out after Rick and Morty came out. And I know what you guys are going to say to that they're just Easter eggs, they shouldn't be taken seriously, but the fact of the matter is, Easter eggs or not, if they're shown on screen, they are canon. In fact, one of the more recent episodes of Rick and Morty took this one step beyond just an Easter egg and featured these images in the background of the episode. For those who don't watch the series and don't know what these are effectively the memory capsules that we saw in Gravity Falls that stored the videos of people's memories that were removed by the memory gun. These are just more advanced versions of those. And here we can clearly see that they are labeled Bill C. and Stanford. Again, I'm not like saying Rick and Morty Gravity Falls crossover confirmed. I'm just saying that someone in the production of Rick and Morty wants us to notice that these are the same multiverse, and that someone on the Gravity Falls crew has reciprocated this. As far as I'm concerned, it's as good as confirmed. This means that the other dimension that Bill Cipher comes from is likely less of another dimension and more of another universe that just has very different rules. It is a commonality in science fiction to include counterparts of the characters from the main setting of the show, the universe in which the show usually takes place, in alternate universes, no matter how different those universes are, or how unlikely it would be for those universes to have the same people in them. What I'm proposing is that Bill Cipher is a version of Stan Pines from an alternate universe where the rules work so differently that a creature with virtual omnipotence was able to evolve there. This explains all of those odd similarities. They dress similarly, they speak similarly, they have similar personalities. They both, even in their way, bring weirdness to the places that they visit, because at their core they're the same person. I know that some of the stuff that Bill says suggests that this can't be true, that he's less an entity and more a force of nature, something that's always existed. But I just don't buy that. He claims that he's some being of light with no weaknesses, and yet we see definitively that he is a life form. He has internal organs, he has a brain, he has a frickin' eyeball, for gosh sakes. He has an organ sticking out of the front of his face. And while he could just be using his powers to mimic those things, we do see on many occasions that when he alters his form to fight back against his enemies, he never deviates far from that form, suggesting not only that there are limits to his powers, but that the form he appears in most often, the triangle or sometimes pyramid with the eyeball in the front, is his actual physical body, that it isn't just some construct of energy. Who's to say that Bill wasn't born in some alternate universe where people just look very, very different, and say, for example, managed to give himself these abilities over time? It seems like it should be impossible, and yet I think that it might be possible. And so I think that we would be doing a disservice to this show, which so often deals in things which should be impossible turning out to be real, not to consider it. Actually, that's probably what I'm most likely to go into more detail about if I do another theory on this topic, is how exactly it is that Bill got the powers that he has. It would mostly be speculation, at least as far as I can tell at this point, but if that is something you guys are interested in seeing, then absolutely let me know. As per usual, guys, I'd like to know, what do you think of this theory? Or I guess these theories, since I did cover more than one in this video. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22 reminding you guys, buy gold.